so please register with the supervisors on the table over here. If you issue the card, if you will record the rolls. We count cards, not raise hands during votes. The fire exits are located to my left and at the back of the gym. We will gather at what used to be the senior parking lot out front here until the fire department or whatever emergency service comes in, gives us the opportunity to come back into the unit. Make sure you grab your coats, it might be cold. For RMC 155, 166, there is no smoking on school grounds. That includes your personal vehicle. You have to smoke, get in your car, drive out to the street, have a smoke, and come back. 3, please mute all your cell phones. If you have to accept a call, please leave the hall and take care of your call outside and not disturb people. I'll be using a set of rules, moderator rules for this meeting. Previously, the rules were available. I don't know if they were here this year or not. Basically, synopsis of the rules are as follows. The moderator will not be following the office rules of order. The moderator will use the following general rules of procedure, whose main purpose is to keep the meeting moving and not get bogged down. By majority votes, the voters, you guys, can overrule any decision the moderator makes and any rule the moderator establishes. Vote will raise subject to by the voter. Moderator will consider the article. Moderator will announce the article number, the title of the article. I do not need to read what's in the article. I will recognize any voter in attendance to move on to the floor and the second. Once an article has been moved to the floor and seconded, the moderator will allow the school district 3 minutes to give them their version of what's on the article. Same thing with the budget committee after the school district's done, and then we'll open debate to what's on the floor. Anyone who speaks must use the microphone sitting right here in front. I ask that a lot of people here don't know who you are or where you're from. Just please announce your name clearly so we can have it for the record. And what road or street you live on. That would be 123 Main Street, Joe Smith, Main Street. No one may speak unless they have the floor. I will recognize people who in turn have to speak, who are allowed to speak. If you want to speak, you can form a line, and I'll recognize you when it comes up. Along the line, on the floor of time. The moderator will not accept a negative motion, which means that it requires a no, such as, I move that we not adopt this budget. That will not be acceptable motion. If any person behaves in a disorderly manner, after no from the moderator persists in such behavior, or shall in any way disturb the meeting, or willfully violate any rule of proceeding, the moderator may have the police officer or any legal authority in the town remove such person from the meeting. That is RSA 40:8. And that will be all right for that. Okay. The word, Farmington Local School Districts. The inhabitants of the school district of Farmington Local School in the state of New Hampshire qualified to vote in school district affairs. They hereby notified that 2 phases of the annual meeting will be held as follows. First session, deliberative session, today 9 a.m. here at the gym. The second session of the annual meeting, officially moved out of the building, will be March 10th, 2020, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the location of the Town Hall, 531 Main Street, Farmington. Following articles are to be moved to that ballot. Article 1, election of district officials. By motion, move Article 1. Second by John Roman. Discussion on Article 1. Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 1 to the ballot, please raise your hands. All opposed? Motion passes. Article 2, disclosure of business reports. Department of Youth and Sport. Mr. White House. Any discussion on Article 2? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 2, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Article 3, operating school budget. Shall the Farmington School District raise and appropriate its operating budget and not including appropriations, the amounts set forth in the budget as posted in the warrant, for the purpose to set the range totaling $16,266,045. If this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $16,838,780, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required. I motion to move this to the floor. Seconded by Mr. Whitehouse. Second. Seconded by Sylvia White. Superintendent Vaughn.
We are at the deliberative session section of our budget process. We are today setting looking at the budget that was brought forward by the school board. Last year, school board and the budget committee originally the same budget. This year, we brought forward a budget that was higher. Number, a good portion of that, better than half, were insurance changes and increases that we have going into next year. This is the proposed budget that is now on the ballot for on the warrant committee today here in the deliberative session. Calculating the tax impact of this warrant. Our proposed budget that we came forward with last year. This was the tax impact at voting. This was the tax impact that was on December ballot. Our current proposed budget was $15.99 this year. The budget we have before you now is $14.61 as far as the total tax impact. Calculating the tax impact. The school board has chosen to use only monies on the tax impact notice on Article 3. That is calculated using the DRA formula that takes last year's appropriation, the net appropriation that is the local portion, not the entire tax bill, that includes advocacy, grant funding, that last year's local appropriation is subtracted. It's the difference between that and this year's local appropriation. It's subtracting those new monies, dividing by our new net valuation, gives us 9 cents on the dollar for the current. The DRA formula does not do just the monies. It does last local appropriation to current local appropriation. One of the deciding factors in your last tax bill is a change in the valuation of the town, which has increased from about $448 million to $556 million for the town. With the school's portion of that. Looking at what you have before you, we are looking at cuts that have been made by the budget committee in a total of $707,740. So what we have before you is an adjustment. The budget that you have before you now will impact class sizes. It will impact our programming facilities.
Okay. And on stage, all the floor.
Mr. Moderator, I see that legal counsel's, Tim Brown from Melody Lane in Farmington. I see legal counsel seated at the front table, Mr. Moderator. Could we get a legal opinion if new monies is a reflection of the tax impact in RSA 32, which requires the tax impact to express the tax impact of the article versus the new monies?
So two basic legal points here. The first is that per statute, it's specifically left to the school board to determine the tax impact and how they go about that, therefore up to them. Secondly, as reference, they use State Department of Revenue Administration's formula to calculate this. And so for TRA, bottom line is by statute, it's up to the board.
Mr. Whitehouse.
Mr. Brown, follow.
Thank you. With that said, I'd like to make a motion to amend Article 3. And in the notes section of Article 3, after the sentence that says the estimated tax impact for the new monies is 9 cents, I'd like to insert the sentence that the estimated tax increase over the December 2019 tax bill is 85 cents per thousand.
Very close to the legal. We said that something that will make sense. The setback for the making
Note my objection for the record.
Mr. Whitehouse.
My position, I think it's my client's
Tim Brown again from Melody Lane. Listening to the school presentation, I just want to make some observations. One is that at the September Budget Committee meeting of last year, the school board presented an expenditure report. And in that expenditure report, we noted that there was $14,583,192.20 spent, or actually budgeted. Out of that budgeted money, there was $13,972,324.30 spent. The Budget Committee's budget is an increase of $1,139,311.70 over what the school district spent in ending June of last year. The proposed budget from the school department is $1,910,051.70 over what was spent June of last year.
Manny Krasner. This is short for me, and I'm short. Manny Krasner, Reservoir Road. I am so lost at this point, I can't believe it. I'm looking at the warrant, and it says that The school board voted 4-0 in support of this new budget, which is $16,838,780, and that the budget committee did the same. But I also heard a comment from the superintendent that the budget committee had cut the budget $770,000, and I'm hearing millions of dollars from Mr. Brown. I don't see it here. Could somebody please explain what the heck is going on? Okay, so the one that's proposed is not the default, it's the 16,266,045?
Yes.
Okay. So I still don't know what's going on. Who's saying what? Who's saying we should get what? Where are we supposed to be?
The vote that you had from the school board was the original vote on the proposed budget. The school board by law is required to put forward a budget and to accept and recommend that there is a budget, but not allowed to not recommend the budget that's going forward. But the amount the board proposed, $17,036,785 total. The budget committee's approved budget that's before you now is $16,266,045.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. I guess I just want to follow up with what Manny said, and I think the superintendent clarified it, but I just want to make sure that everybody's heard, is clear on it. The budget number, or the number that is in here, is the number that was voted on and recommended by the budget committee, which is a reduction of $770,000 of what the school board proposed to the budget committee. So the amount in the warrant article is the amount that of $16,266,000 that was recommended and approved to put on the warrant by the budget committee.
Correct, yes.
Angela Cardinal, Main Street. I can further add some clarification for everyone. If you picked up the document that's on the header, it's a 10-page document that's on the table there called MS-27. If you didn't grab it, you might want to grab it, because a very helpful statement that's in this document that is required by the state is on page 9 of 10, and there's a budget summary. On that page, you'll see the first line shows the operating budget appropriations. The first number you see listed in the column, one over from the right, says school board period ending June 30, 2021. That is what the school board recommended. The last column shows what the budget committee period ending June 30, 2021. That is the number that the budget committee put forward. The warrant article 3 has to have the most recent number that was put forward in this process. I'd also like to highlight that when we talk about $17 million versus $16 million, what, as taxpayers, we are being asked to support is that bottom line, estimated amount of taxes to be raised. We have to vote the full number so that it allows the school district administration to spend it, no matter where it comes from. The amount that comes from our property tax bills totals that bottom line. So one could argue that the budget committee has cut $1 million, roughly.
Mary Barron, Ridge Road. One comment, Superintendent advised this body that this would cause cuts in staff and increased classroom sizes. Rewind the tape 2 years ago, we had full staff, not maybe 100%, but extremely close to full staff and we returned $100,000. I'm sorry, let me correct that. We returned $1 million. So with full staff, we returned $1 million. Now we have a $770,000 reduction, and that's going to cause teachers' cuts, kids in the classroom, that type of thing. My math is not that good, but I'm having problems understanding how with full staff you can turn back $1 million, but with 770 less, we're going to be devastated. That's just a comment. My second comment is, I have a petition for secret ballot for any and all votes taken on this article. May I approach?
Mr. Moderator, can I speak to the comment?
Superintendent?
The monies that Mrs. Barron has referenced from 2 years ago were returned as part of finishing our audits that had been undone for several years. And that was a collective unexpended fund balance that was returned. That was not the norm. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
One comment that I didn't hear tonight that I think the taxpayers need to know is this year, the state of New Hampshire gave the school district an extra $950,000. The second comment that I'm hearing is catastrophic cuts. The truth is, the school board that's going to make those decisions for a budget that starts in July of this year has not even been elected yet.
Blanche Tanner Memorial Drive.
Please speak into the microphone.
Blanche Tanner Memorial Drive. Is that better? I am not going to discuss the monies, dollar amounts and all that because I'm just not. My issue is that I have lived in this town for 16 years, as I tell at every meeting I go to. I've supported the children of this town. As a former educator, I guess I'm biased, I guess I'm naive, you can call me whatever name you want to call me, I really don't care. But my feeling is I don't want to pay taxes either. But I, as a community member, somehow I have to be able to do that. And I guess my question is, not a question, but my feeling is, we as a community need to support the children. And I keep hearing, you know, they're not doing well enough, they're doing all this foolishness. My point is, this has happened in every school I've ever worked in. Always the same comments. The school's not doing enough, the school's not doing enough. It's not just the school. It is the whole town, and I'm not criticizing parents because I don't know them, but everyone needs to be involved in the education of the children. I keep hearing the school needs to be innovative and they need to use their money wisely. I think they're doing a good job. Maybe I'm naive, I don't know. But I feel like they're doing a good job. I know that the budget season always brings out a different personality, seems to me, in people. There's always a questioning and always there's something submissive going on, there's something, subjective going on, there's something mean going on. I don't like it. I would like us all to try to get along, stop looking for something that the school or the school board is doing wrong. We have 5 people that this town, no matter how you voted, have elected right now to be on that school board. Same with the budget committee. We vote for these people. My feeling is when that vote is taken, whether it's the school, town, budget committee, whatever it is, when that vote is taken, those people are in those seats, we as community members, and I guess I'm just speaking for myself, we need to rely on those people to make the best decisions for the town. I'm assuming they're all members and residents of this town, whether taxpayers or not, I don't know, but the fact is I trust these people. And again, maybe I'm naive, but that's just the way I feel. We need to support the schools. We can cut budgets, we can do all that, but let's try to say something nice. Let's try to be supportive and give a positive feedback and not always like a negative tone. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Joe Petrie. I'm your state representative We worked hard over in Concord to get targeted aid, and I believe somebody alluded to that $950,000, and that's for 2 years. It was basically targeting poor towns like Farmington, Franklin, Berlin, which 68% of their property is non-taxable. We also cut back or reduced the stabilization, the 4% a year, and it seems so our budget keeps going up. And I'd like to have an explanation where that money is going and how that was, I don't see it in the, as revenue.
The $950,000 that Farmington will be receiving next year is being used to offset the tax rate that is in the revenues that lower the impact of those new monies.
Thank you.
Alan Arbo, Morning Dove Lane.
Alan Arbo.
Alan Arbo, Morning Dove Lane. So I just have a couple of comments. My wife and I are new to Farmington, 4 years new to Farmington. We moved out here in 15, and we're just sort of becoming accustomed to all of this thing. So so I'm not completely familiar with all the budgets, but I have heard lots of things going on with the school and the contentious sort of nature between them. I, for one, am fiscally conservative, but my wife and I don't have kids. We support teachers, not students. We support institutions rather than people when it comes to dollars. So we live within a simple budget. We make simple means. We get simple raises. I expect everybody to do the same regardless. And the problem is that when you expand a budget, you're going to live within that budget. Keep it low. Just keep it low. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Mary Barron Ridge Road. The $950,000 has come up. A couple of things I'd like to point out. Unless the state is that generous with us next year, that's going to represent, at the current evaluation, approximately $1.76 automatic increase next year without raising a dime from anywhere else. If the budget were level funded, your taxes without additional aid from the state will go up $1.76. My second question on the $950,000 is, when the school board presented that budget to the budget committee, it was considered revenue, i.e. available to pay bills, but it was also going to be and intended to be used to support warrant articles. At the 11th hour of the public hearing, that was challenged for the fourth or fifth time and was finally agreed that you really can't spend it in both places. My point in this is that if we're going to be asked to vote on a number to support our school system, and we know that within a couple of weeks ago, that number was off by more than $1 million being presented from the school board to the budget committee. The budget committee had little or no choice. They had to pull a Hail Mary at the end of that meeting and do what they needed to do to avoid what could have potentially been a $4 increase. And again, I ask you to remember, these new tax rates are against your new evaluation. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, after Charlie speaks, I'd like to motion to call the question.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. I'm going to try to make a comment, try to put it as positive as possible. But I am bothered by how the warrant article is listed, saying that it's a 9-cent increase for the new monies. I think that has not been the standard before this time, where we've always shown the actual tax impact. And I think that it is misleading, because what I'm hearing, and maybe somebody from the budget committee can can confirm this, but I'm hearing the impact of this budget that's proposed by the Budget Committee that's before us now is an 85 cents per thousand increase, not 9 cents. 9 cents does not represent what the taxpayer is going to see. Hopefully somebody can confirm that for the residents here who are going to consider voting for this article.
Ms. Martin?
Point of order.
We're going to get an answer for Mr. King's question, please.
Oh.
Superintendent Vaughn.
The 9 cents is on the new monies as you are comparing last year's appropriation to this year's appropriation. We have traditionally, in the past years, used new money the same calculation. However, we have a valuation change that happened, which does change. You're not looking at last year's appropriation having been divided necessarily by the same number as this year. The 85 cents is comparing tax bills to tax bills. What I do is the budget piece. I don't set the tax rate. There are a number of other pieces that go into setting a tax rate. Changes in revenue, unexpended fund balance, changes in legislation, none of which are necessarily under our direct control. What we're giving you now is our best estimate of what it will be. The 85-cent number is comparing a tax bill to a tax bill. That is another calculation. It is arrived at the same. The board has decided to use the new monies calculation because that is traditionally what has been done.
Mr. Krasner.
Thank you. Let him just talk at this point in time, or do I need to address the point of order? Point of order is that the motion to call the question was improper. Motion to call the question, the only thing you're allowed to say is call the question. You're not allowed to say, oh, after somebody else speaks, or I have, whatever. All you do when you call a question is call a question. So I suggest that. I don't think Mr. Whitehouse had the floor. I think I have the floor. Am I correct?
You have the floor, and there is someone behind you that will also have the floor.
Thank you. And I guess I'll start right where we just left off. We are in the same position we're in every year. Every year, we have to decide about the tax rate. We know that it's going to be a strain for some people. It's going to be a stress for some people. And we're always stuck in this catch-22. Can we afford to properly fund the schools? Or we don't want to push elderly people on fixed incomes out of their homes? We always deal with this bad choice. And despite the generosity we got from the state this year, over the years, the problem is always the same place. It's in Concord, where the state doesn't step up and do their job and fund education properly. So we're stuck with it. So we have to make the hard choice. Do you just say we can only afford so much, we cannot afford to give our kids a first-rate education? We'll go with what we can afford? Or do we say, no, we're going to try to do the whole thing and invest? We do the whole thing, we invest, we hope we catch up. We go to austerity and just do whatever we think we can afford, and we're stuck in the same spiral that people say, oh, Farmington schools aren't that good, we're not going to go to Farmington, and so you don't get the growth, you don't get the new industry, whatever you need to actually give us a better tax base, although even then, so that's always the hard choice. And I hope that we won't demonize each other, that we won't say, oh, there's skullduggery here, or oh, there's callousness here. I don't think anybody in the school system is stealing any money or throwing any money away. And I don't think anybody on the Budget Committee majority is heartless and wants to punish children. So it's a hard choice. I'm going to come out on the side of more money for education, but I can legitimately see how other people will come out the other way. And if we could keep it civil and not insinuate that somebody else is acting in bad faith, I think it's better for all of us.
Rob Lawless, Labrador Road. I just have a question, it might be out of ignorance. This default budget of the school district, 4-page document. I just had a question on a couple line items that I didn't understand what they were. On page 2 of 4, line item 1400-1499, other programs. I got a couple more. Should I just name all 3 of them, or?
Take them one at a time.
Okay.
1400s include co-curricular, extracurricular,
Co-curricular and extra, so that would be clubs.
athletics, clubs.
Okay.
Next line.
The next line is 2200-22299, instructional staff services. What are we doing?
That includes our curriculum and instruction. It includes professional development. It includes courses for teachers that are allowed under the CBA. It includes professional stipends.
Okay. And then my last
And
one.
also media services and nurse, excuse me.
Okay. And the last one is on the last page, well, actually it says 3 or 4. 5222, 5229, other special revenue.
Those are grants and transfer to food service.
Transfer what again?
The 5220
Yeah.
is transfer to food service because that's a separate fund.
No, sorry, 5229.
5229, other special revenue, that includes our federal grants and local and state grants.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Motion to call the question?
So is this on? I mean, I know I'm loud, but I joined this committee, or I ran for this committee because I support
Name
the
and street,
school.
please, before you get too far.
Same place, Cameron Drive. I joined this committee because I support the schools. I wanted more support for the school on this committee. We spent over a month going line by line through this budget. I can tell you, it is not a good budget. Last year, we added money to the budget because it was a solid budget they gave us, and we added money. This year, there's a lot of fluff. There's $35,000 in smart boards and Chromebooks. There's an extra $200,000 in the IT line that we added last year that they chose to level fund to get us to compliance. There is a lot of extra in this budget that we don't need. As much as I love to invest into our school, this is not the tax year to do that. And that's why we chose to make those cuts. So I know a lot of you are looking at us thinking that we're monsters, that we just don't care. I'm not the only one on this board that are here to support the schools, and I'm also not the only one that voted to cut it. If you guys had the same knowledge that we had by going through this budget, you would all completely agree with us. That's all.
Ms. Mulcahy.
Just a slight overview from just the point of view of a school board member. And in light of the fact that we did turn back. I'm sorry?
You were not recognized by the chair.
That we did turn back money for the audits and things like that. So going into this budget season, we were very cognizant of the bottom line and of the taxpayers. And the budget that the school board did present to the budget committee was actually only 0.5% over what it was last year. We did take a very hard look at the budget along with the administration. They presented a very thorough budget, and there really were very few increases that we felt were unjustified, and we made those cuts long before even the budget committee saw that, and I just wanted to point that out.
And that was,
Mr. King.
To be honest, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Moderator, I'm somewhat puzzled why you have not recognized Josh Whitehouse when he raised his hand to speak after me. You let Manny speak, you let two other people to speak. He made a motion. You didn't recognize him. He raised his hand, you didn't recognize him. So I will reaffirm his motion to call a question.
Order. You can't do that. If you're going to call a question, you just...
Call the question.
As soon as that lady behind you who's standing in line has her say.
Second.
A motion and a second to override the moderator to let this citizen speak to the microphone.
Unacceptable. Motion that's on floor is to overrule the moderator. That motion stands.
And that's what I'm getting at right now.
After you let someone speak.
No. The motion right now is to overrule the moderator on accepting the point of order to call the question, or to the question to call the question. In my moderator's rules, said that anybody standing in line will have the ability to speak, and then when they are through, the motion will go through. But we have a point of order in a second. So, all in favor to overrule the moderator on letting this citizen speak, raise your cards.
That's not the motion. Point of order. The motion was to overrule the moderator.
Question is to overrule the moderator. All in favor of overruling the moderator, please raise your cards. All opposed? We're going to take a standing count. We're going to have the supervisors count the cards. Back to the first point. All in favor of overruling the moderator, raise your hands. Keep them up while we get counted. Okay, you can put your hands down. All opposed to overruling the moderator, please raise your cards. Keep them up while we're being counted, please. Put your hands down. Vote was in the affirmative, 68, in the negative, 48. The motion to overrule the monitor passes. Question. Motion has been made to call the question. All in favor of calling Article 3, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries.
that mean the people in line get to talk?
Okay.
Or no?
Tim Brown, are you here? Mary Barron?
Yes.
Aloha Cameron? Is that Cameron? Sylvia Arquette?
Yeah.
That being 5 citizens of the town of Farmington here to vote, we are going to have a secret ballot on this question. The voting is as follows. Once it's time, you'll walk over to the supervisors. You will check in. Once you are checked in, you will be given a yes and a no card. Place your vote into the ballot box, crumple up the other card, and throw it away. This is going to take some time to process 100 people. While this is being processed, please feel free to take into the refreshments put in by the steam machine, which is our robotics team. They're doing a fundraiser. And I hereby call for a vote.
I know. It's pretty complicated.
Okay, if the vote comes out in the affirmative, this question moves to the ballot. If it comes out into the negative, we'll still be discussion Article 3.
Right across the hall. I'm not sure how many people understand. We're just moving it to the ballot versus voting whether or not.
I think we have a blank.
Just less people to the ballot.
I don't know.
You get a lot of no votes. She didn't vote this year. She literally, we forced her to go. They think they're voting against it, so they're voting not voting against it. But
When you check into the supervisor's table, please have your identification out and ready. It'll make it a little faster to go. There are 2 lines, A through L and M through Z.
Right, but there's more people who are not.
So I go up every Thursday, well, just 4 weeks, but I go up for the skating, and then I'm doing a bulletin board for church, so I stopped in at Carpenter School because they have a die cut machine.
Okay, yeah.
And I said, I brought my own paper, I just want to use your machine because I don't like all these.
And how the kiddos?
Good. Chris lives in Linfield, Mass.
Okay.
And has a summer place up in Harrison Lake.
Wow.
And then Trisha is in Northampton. And she has 2 kids. Dominic is going to be 7 in March. And Charlotte,
grandma.
And it's so fun. Yes. Yeah, because and Charlotte is 5. So they're, if it's not high traffic, it's 50 minutes. I don't know. To get there. So I see them, pretty much. It's good. And what are you doing? Are you crazy to get back
I'm not, and I agree.
Well, I read
I'm not
they won't let them talk. I want everybody to get a chance to talk. I didn't want to. I'm trying to get everything up to the number that's not. Yeah. It's this number. No one's made a motion. Taxes. If you don't report to school district, you never sell a house.
We don't have a big, I would use the
16, 288,
Right.
whatever that number is.
something else to help out.
Yeah.
you know,
It's a problem, but throwing money at a problem doesn't take care of the problem. But if you don't fund your school system,
right.
it's going to be even worse, and then you won't sell your house.
Right. I keep saying to myself, we go around here 4 years ago. That's still everybody's home is between she might get the buses. She said, oh, I gotta buy houses. Plus the grandkids are all two boys, 2 girls. Both young girls had boy and a girl. Both of them. The youngest, Jill, just got back from 3 years. Oh, I just gone. I asked her. The youngest granddaughter, Michigan. Bought one of the picnic tribe and involved the Anglican church over there, so she was doing that over there. And then she had the baby over there. So she's got dual citizenship. But this was the first Christmas in almost 4 years that we had holidays together.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a nice meal.
So what is she doing now that she's back?
Nothing. Well, she just got hired. She's still involved with the church, but she just got a job down at I don't even know what the name of the company is. Maybe like the administrative assistant. He works it's the AT&T in the mall here. We passed the Deliberative. So Jess teaches some of the shoes, and she said, that's it, I'm done again.
Middle school is tough.
Yeah, well, it was just leadership. We get education, good, bad, or different. That's the nature of the beast. Teach the kids how to play that game. So
Fourth grade is the great time.
yeah. So she's ended up. That's the one I want to know. I want to say it's a Southbridge, Sturbridge. It's a residential behavioral program.
Yeah.
They love her. So she's over there now. So, well, one thing you did. You like what you're doing over there. You work that mindset. You made more money. So you know, it's not that far away. So you know.
I hate to say it, I'm sitting back there and I got a chance to see the teacher.
Last year, with the budget period, now I know there's $1 billion. That they don't do that. What do you track? So my
That's what you get.
Three
And then when they
years,
get,
gone.
yeah. Or somebody who's lived in town all their life and doesn't want to drive, and doesn't want to travel.
You got, you know the system. Once you get 10-year mark, you want to
I stayed, well, I was lucky because I was short of getting a master's. And Sumner Harrison hired me, said, you know, if you had your master's, so I got there and got my master's there. And he said, yeah, because I had 17 years.
Yes. Right now.
And then I stayed there another, no, I had 16 years. I had 16 years, and then I, because I did like 8 or 9 years before my kids, and then I did 8 years here.
But, you know, I do school pictures now and all that stuff. It's company, it's so funny. Go to Kingswood High School. All the kids I taught, those people I taught with, you know, it's like a bunch of this stuff. And I said, it's a good system, and it's not that far away, and they just made thousands more people pushing.
When I left and went there, I made 10 more.
And it's amazing. Well, you go in there.
And then I got my master's.
You go in the direction. You're going to jump up 5 or more thousand.
I mean, I don't know around the same place, but you know, when I left there, I was like 73. I've been out for 6 years. Friends of mine who are still there, this year they
Well, probably like people like Jamie Myers or something.
Yeah, I was at the top of the top.
So I was probably at the top.
Yeah. The only people that were making more were the people who have been in the district for a long time and they get a stipend.
They get a longevity.
They get a longevity pay. And I didn't get that. I wasn't there long enough. Yeah, the difference is crazy.
I used to tell people, I always say, I don't know.
The difference.
Were you up there with Rusty Ross? Was up there at middle school?
Yeah.
We're all across the
But I mean, I was
used to
at
go-
middle school.
Yeah, I used to talk to him a lot when I was middle school down here. I used to say,
He played ball with my brother.
did you really? I used to, how was that was the new cliche was fair and equitable education for everybody.
Because
And I go, how is it fair and equitable? You're putting heated astroturf on your football field. I can't put books or anything down in my school. We always just say, on a front property. It's all based on the property values.
Yeah, and that's where it's not. Yeah. It's sad.
Sure is. I don't know how this is going to go, but it's pretty much split, looking at cars.
And this is just whether or not they want to call the question, isn't it? I mean, this isn't the vote.
Oh, this is the vote. Close the vote. This is the vote on Ward 3.
All right.
Secret. Yes, you want it? No, you don't. I was everybody. Funny story back when we did this years ago. Jim Bibble was sort of he had two different colored ties. Well, two different colored ties. Yes or no? That went out. That was illegal. You can't have two separate colored ties. That's be the same.
So that's the second part of the alphabet. That's not my line. My line.
Yeah, we're in the same boat.
People in my neighborhood.
Well, he's the new one they got up top.
Yeah, there's some new people up in the neighborhood. I'm gonna go over and say hi and stuff. It was nice
All right,
seeing you.
good
Take
seeing you.
care.
Take care. Good seeing you. Give my best to the kids.
Yeah, I will.
All right, thanks, Mike.
only temporary, and he was just filling in, so, I mean, yeah, I mean, at any of the meetings, I don't think.
I did.
Gotta see if she's got something in the nurse's office.
Or in the athletics training.
In case I leave before getting to talk to you, thank you so much.
You owe me.
I do, big time.
Well, I was hoping that the rumor was KJ was going to say, good, I don't have to worry. But then when Joel called me, he says, you know,
It's not good,
It's not good. It's not going to be good the next year, and there's still a lot of work. You know, I said, well, start something, you got to finish it. And I don't think it's going to be done by March 10th. What's going to need to be done? So.
Of course not.
No, so I said, well. Then he said, well, it's only a 2 years. I said, well, better than 3, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who knows if all of a sudden I'm feeling great and you and I can
look
talk.
good. You look good.
Thank you. It's invisible. I feel like crap right now.
No, jeez. But bottom line is, it's not a good feel right now.
Yeah.
It's very mixed. It's very mixed. It's very mixed. It's very close.
And isn't it funny how we all sit where we align?
Oh, that's right. I was just telling Stan that. He said, this is like it every year.
It's like we're watching the
Senate.
television.
The Senate, yeah.
The Senate.
Yeah, exactly.
Only thing else everybody can do is do right here, one there.
If anybody hasn't voted yet, please go in to see the supervisors and cast your ballot.
Yeah, well, let's hope it...
Give you another couple of minutes.
Probably going to motion to reconsideration right off the bat.
Yep. Well, it does that. This goes all the way until the ballot anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, seeing that no one's at the supervisors' table, let's all settle down. We'll get the supervisors to count the ballots. We're going to move on to a couple other questions while we're here, while we're waiting for the ballots to be counted.
Mike, which one are you doing next? Okay.
Okay, we're going to jump ahead here a little bit. I'd like to entertain a motion to take Article 5 and Article 7 together, please. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Joshua Whitehouse, second.
Second.
Second by Neil. Discussion on Article 5 and Article 7, which is to, if the previous warrant articles 4 and 6 are defeated, that the school district can hold a special meeting. This is pretty much a boilerplate article. Shouldn't be too much discussion on it, but we'll open the floor to discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 5 and Article 7 to the March ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Both motions pass. Oh, sorry. Let's redo that one again. I need a motion now to move both articles to the floor.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Joshua Whitehouse. No, we had a motion to put them together.
Yeah.
Now we got a motion to move them to the floor. Discussion on Article 5 and 7. Hearing no discussion, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 5 and 7? All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll start opening discussion on Article 4. Article 4, school custodians. See if the school district will vote to approve the cost items included in the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, between the Farmington School Board and the Farmington School Custodians, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Fiscal year 21, an estimated increase of $46,667. And to further raise and appropriate $46,667 for the 2021 school year. Such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new contract over those. Estimated tax impact is 8 cents per thousand. School board recommends 4-0. Budget committee recommends 9-0. I have a motion to move Article 4 to the floor.
So made.
So moved by Penny Moran. Second, Sylvia Arquette. Discussion.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. I just want to make a comment to some people who may be new to this meeting that the voting on this article just forwards it to the ballot that will be voted on at town meeting time.
That is correct.
Mr. Moderator.
So the voters will decide whether or not this passes or not. We're just voting to move it forward.
To move it forward to the March ballot. That is correct.
Mr. Moderator, if I just may speak to the article, Joel Shagnon, School Board Chair. Mrs. Moran and I were privileged enough to work on this agreement with the Custodians and Maintenance Association, with particular emphasis on beginning steps, which was supported by the very well-experienced, very much experienced members of the bargaining unit, so that we're a little more competitive when we're looking for new custodians. But I think that you'll find that there was some basic language that we worked on, and then obviously the 3 years pay scale, which I think is fair to both the custodians and to the community. And as you will note, that the school board and budget committee recommended it unanimously. So.
Thank you, Mr. Shagnon. Mr. Whitehouse.
I think that the Budget Committee here, I'm going to speak for myself, chose to recommend this article because it just brings the wages up to market rates.
Tim Brown from Melody Lane in Farmington. Just have a question on tax impact. Is this new monies? Is it actual tax impact? I don't understand. You know, one article's new monies, this one's tax impact.
This, because the part that's being raised and appropriated is all new money. So this is the tax impact that this new CBA would have in the next year.
Okay.
Based on the current evaluation?
That's year one.
Based on the current evaluation of $556 million.
Yes.
But it doesn't say new monies. I'm confused.
One more time?
It's
The language doesn't say new monies. The language in Article 3 says new monies. The language in Article 4 doesn't say new monies. I'm confused.
This isn't new money. This is what your taxes would go up at the current evaluation.
This is the increase represented by this new CBA, which is why it says an estimated increase.
So if this is what my taxes will go up under this article, why is Article 3 not what my taxes will go up? It's confusing.
The same formula was used on both articles.
So the DRA article has, the DRA formula has a formula to compare new monies from last year to new monies this year? Is that what I'm being told?
Mr. Brown, this is a contract that has been negotiated between the Farmington School Board and the Farmington custodians. And the operating budget has the current monies being paid to the custodians. This contract, if it is ratified by the voters, will increase said operating budget by $46,667 this coming year, starting July 1, 2020, $12,488 coming the year July 21, and $13,353 in the year 2022, based on if everybody stays and keeps their job. There's been no turnover in the staff. This is what the contract is estimated to add to the operating budget of Article 3.
So does it mean that my taxes over last December tax bill is going to go up 8 cents per thousand? Is that what it means?
Based on the figure of this year, which we are working this year, not last year. We're not looking at last year's money. Last year's was based on a different valuation. It went up in December, but in March of last year, we were basing any increases on a $448 million valuation. This year, the valuation for the town is $556 million.
Last year was based on 5. The actual tax rate, that's when it's coming down. The actual tax rate was down by 5.
So we're showing actual tax impact here, is that correct?
This is actual tax impact on over your last year's December
which
tax
is
bill.
different from what was shown in Article 3, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
The issue is because with the CBA, all of this is new money.
Any other discussions on Article 4? Hearing no discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor of moving Article 4 to the March ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the results of the voting for Article 3. Yes, 101. No, 45. Article 3 moves to the ballot.
Motion to restrict reconsideration.
Second.
Motion to reconstruct reconsideration, Article 3 by Josh Whitehouse, seconded by Mr. Brown. Any discussion?
Mr. Moderator, we have a lot of new taxpayers, voters here for this type of session. Could you explain to them what a motion to restrict reconsideration means?
I'll try my best. A motion to restrict reconsideration means that we cannot come back to this article today. And in effect, if it passes, we cannot come back to this article according to RSA 40:13, or is it 12? So, Article 40:10, RSA 40, that we cannot reconsider this until the March ballot, and even that vote cannot be reconsidered. So this will cut off all future debate on this article moving forward. So we have a motion and a second. Ms. McElhenney.
I just wanted to make a general comment. I know that a lot of flyers and information went out to the townspeople, inviting them to this meeting, and a lot of the discussion was that you are taxpayers and you have a voice. I just wanted to admit my disappointment that the question was called so quickly, and that a lot of the people that I'm sure were here with questions were unable to do so.
Okay, seeing no other comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of restricting Article 3, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Article 3 is restricted. Article 6, to see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items, including in the CBA reached between the Farmington School Board and the Farmington Teachers Association. Calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level of fiscal year 21, an estimate of $164,795. Fiscal year 22, an increase of $160,573. And fiscal year 23, an estimated increase of $165,754. And to further, to raise and appropriate $164,795 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over that which would have been paid at current staffing levels. Estimated tax impact is 30 cents per thousand. School board recommends this appropriation 4-0. The budget committee does not recommend this appropriation 4-5. Motion to move the question to the floor.
So moved.
So moved by Penny Moran.
Second.
Second by Stan Frieda. Ms. Vaughn.
So the highlights for this new CBA include weekly scheduled professional development, which gives us an opportunity to increase student performance, and I'm going to speak to that in the next slide. Student loan assistance benefit for our new teachers who are able to take a portion of their allotment for courses once they have spent 2 years in the district. In their third year, they could take $1,000 of that to put toward loan repayment, because these are our teachers who are coming out of school with larger loans that need to be repaid, and they are not typically our teachers who are taking a full course of college courses in their first few years of teaching, because they're still getting up to speed on things. And then our last is providing compensation to teachers who voluntarily cover classes when we can't get substitutes in.
Mr. Frieda.
Oh, I'll wait until Ms. Vaughn is finished.
Okay, I have one more slide. Just looking at the correlation for that professional development. If you look at research, having had subject matter knowledge, teaching and education, have that much effect size on student achievement. Expectations, quality of teaching, but if we can increase our professional development, and micro-teaching is a type of professional development where you have teachers who are examining their own practice with a peer coach And it's kind of that iron sharpens iron thing where they're examining what happened in a classroom, how they can make it better. If you include those two pieces, our effect size increases dramatically. We are looking to make changes. We need the time in order to do that well. Thank you.
Mr. Frieder.
So I just want to mention that Ms. Moore and I really spent a lot of time with the teachers and thinking about how to do this for kids. This is our second cycle through where rather than being adversarial, which has been the practice in the past, we worked together and all decisions were made with the best interest of kids in mind. That's where we sort of started. And as far as the salaries go, this cycle, we focused on the newer teachers and coming up to speed so that we can have things to offer and retain some of our newer faculty and faculty that we don't have yet. The last cycle, we sort of focused on the veteran teachers who are here for a long time. So if this article passes, and I hope that it does, we will get a fairer pay scale for all of our teachers. So I hope that you support it.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. I have two questions, one for the school board and one for the budget committee. My first question on the professional development time, is that going to take away from the teacher's time with the students in the classroom? Or is that going to be additional time that they're going to be putting in? And my question for the budget committee was, they did not
Let's answer one at a time. We'll let you with a follow-up.
For the professional development time, it would be 1 hour release for the students per week, and it would be an additional hour beyond that for teachers each week. So it's a compromise between the two. Currently, we exceed the number of hours that we have to have by state statute. However, we are looking to make sure that the hours that we have can be better spent as we get teachers in a better place to use that time wisely and well.
So to repeat back what you said to me, there's going to be 1 less hour of school time and 2 hours of professional development for the teachers.
Correct.
Okay. My question for the budget committee is, they did not recommend this 4-5 vote. I'd like to hear from somebody of why they didn't recommend it, what their concerns with this article.
Mr. Henry.
I'd like to start by saying my wife is a teacher in the district. If this article passes, it will put more money into my home. I did vote against this article, recommending this contract as it's written for a couple reasons. I do believe that the way that they have rescheduled the professional development is better than what we do now, but I don't believe it's as good as we could do. I don't think we're going to get where we need to be by reducing instruction time. I do like the idea of improving the quality of the teaching, but I want to couple that with more student time in the classroom. My bigger issue is with the so-called benefit for teachers to repay student loans. That money is only available to teachers that have student loans, so why we would favor students that are teachers that financed an education over those that may have had full academic scholarships or paid as they went, I can't understand. As an employer, I don't know why we care how you paid for your education. We care what your education is and the qualifications that you bring. And to be eligible to receive this money, you must not exhaust your allotment of educational reimbursement, which means you don't go to school to get this money. I can't see any way that it is not paying teachers to not take classes. I think you'd have a very different result if you paid the $1,000 in addition for any teacher that did exhaust their allotment. I think you would see more teachers taking classes and improving their teaching and their knowledge that they bring to our students, rather than encouraging them not to take more schooling.
May I speak to?
Superintendent Vaughn.
All of the teachers have the same benefit toward course reimbursement. This gives them an additional way to apply that. Traditionally, the teachers who might be taking advantage of this are not the teachers who are taking full advantage of that benefit now.
Ms. Cardinal.
Angie Cardinal, Main Street.
Mr. Moderator, may I offer an amendment to the wording on this article, please?
There can be no amendments to this article. This is bulletproof by DRA, by the state law.
Okay, then may I ask a question? Article 4's wording is slightly different from Article 6 wording, and both are in respect to CBAs.
And your question to that is?
In Article 4, the line right after the year-to-year estimation says, and further to raise and appropriate the dollar amount for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Article 6 says, and further to raise and appropriate the dollar amount for the current fiscal year. The motion I wanted to propose would be to be the strike the word current and insert 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Here, do you want?
I'll let legal answer this question, please.
Thank you.
As the moderator already said, collective bargaining agreement warrant articles cannot be modified. It used to be that they could, but the legislature changed that several years ago. Secondly, current fiscal year in the context of this meeting and the 2020 to 21 fiscal year, it's the same thing. So it's worded differently, but it means the same thing.
Okay, a follow-on question, please.
Follow up.
Also in warrant Article 6, the two more lines below the line I referenced, over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. What does the word current mean there?
Superintendent Baum?
The Department of Revenue Administration wants the comparison of staffing levels to be the same so that voters can compare apples to apples. So it means the staffing level that you have now.
Not the 2020-2021 fiscal year?
Correct.
So current the word current is listed twice to mean two different school years in that warrant article.
In the context that you're talking about, the staffing levels are the same. If the costing of it is done based on assuming that there's no turnover, as the moderator said earlier. So that's what that means. In the context of the dollar amount being appropriated, the year for which it's being appropriated by the 2020 annual meeting is the 2020 to 21 fiscal year.
Where if this is, sorry, follow-up question, please. If this wording is prescribed by the DRA because it is a CBA, how is a CBA from warrant Article 4 wording that's prescribed different from CBA article wording for Article 6, which is also for a CBA?
It's not that the wording of these two collective bargaining agreement warrant articles is prescribed by DRA. It's that the legislature amended the collective bargaining statute to specify you cannot modify the language on the warrant.
Okay, when was it last modified?
It was approximately 10 years ago. I can try to look it up. And
this one. Like, who has reviewed and modified throughout the process? I ask that because it was drafted by administration, it was approved by school board, I believe it goes through legal
and has been reviewed by DRA as well.
And so, I guess my problem with the way that we're using the word current twice in this article, and it means two different fiscal years, is we just heard that there's a very real chance that the budget, if it passes on warrant Article 3, will result in a staffing change for fiscal year 2020-2021. So to say it's current is a comparison of apples to apples may very likely not be true. We're just inserting more and more confusion in this process by not allowing us to be uniform in our wording from warrant article to warrant article. And I don't understand why we're paying a service to review these words and they're still going through with the confusion.
Mr. Brown.
Tim Brown from Melody Lane. I'm a numbers guy. I just want to make a comment. I'm kind of disappointed I haven't seen these numbers, but Our collective bargaining for our teachers are projected over 3-year contracts historically. The total savings in this contract compared to the last contract is $83,393.99, which means our cost for the 3 prior years is more than what this warrant article is presenting to the taxpayers. The other question I have that was a little confusing on the slide is, am I correct in that any teacher that's been here for 2 years or more can apply the education stipend in the contract towards their student debt?
Correct.
Okay, because it seemed, I heard the word new teacher, but this is for all teachers.
It is for all teachers.
And it's a recruitment tool?
That's what we're hoping.
Okay, and is this something the teachers union brought forward, or is this something the administration brought forward?
This is something that we brought forward.
Thank you.
Mrs. Moran.
I just want to speak to the professional development. Our team that we worked diligently with for this contract came to us with this idea for the 2 hours so that they could increase their time with their students and get the professional development that they need and deserve from our district.
Blanche Tanner Memorial Drive. I'll put a disclaimer on my next comment, as I was an educator for 30 years. I think it's very important to support teachers. We hear a lot about teachers are doing this, not doing that, but if you've not been in the classroom for 30 years, I'm not sure you really have an idea of what that means. You're dealing with a lot of different students who have a lot of different need, and I think to support them and give them some money is important. The other thing I would just caution or just say is that people are talking about time in the classroom. Well, I guess I would say that it really is the quality of time spent with students and not the quantity of time is the quality. And so if you're missing an hour, well, that's, it maybe sounds like a lot, but really it's the quality of time that teachers and students are spending together. It's not the amount of time. You could give them 15 days, 15 weeks. It really wouldn't make any difference if the quality is not there. I don't know any of the teachers in this district, so I have no personal interest in this at all. But I'm just saying, as a general comment, based on my own experience, I think that in order to recruit teachers, we need to show that the district is supporting them. Teachers get discouraged if they're not shown some level of appreciation, maybe from the town, from the parents. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. Everyone is entitled to their vote. But I'm just saying that teachers need to feel important and supported. And I would just encourage people to really consider this. Go to school board meetings. Ask the people that we have voted in. Talk to the superintendent. Get some information before you go on March 10 and vote. Please, people, get some information. Don't just go by what you're sitting here thinking about. Get information, please.
Mr. Henry. Mr. Henry yields the floor to Mr. Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. As some of you know, I represented the American Federation of Teachers for a number of years. And and I've got a question for the superintendent. How many teachers, ballpark, or how many personnel are covered by this?
I believe it's 106.
106. So you got a 3-year contract for 106 teachers. It's going to go up 164 a year. That is a minor miracle on the part of the school board. I mean, given that number of teachers, this simple division, you're getting, over 3 years, you're only putting in $1,600 per teacher per year. I mean, that is a remarkably tight budget. And back in the day, most of the unions that I represented would have been kicking and screaming and knocking down the doors before they accepted a budget like a contract like this. So I think the school board has done a remarkably good job of keeping the costs down on the teacher's contract. And I understand Steve Henry's issues with a couple of the things, but I would say that they are, nuances, fine details. And to get a 3-year contract with just this kind of increase with that larger staff is a remarkably good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry.
All right. The salary schedules, if you look at the increases, or I should say the changes in the salary schedule, they're fairly small. In fact, some of the steps, the top steps, the dollar values actually went down. With the change in professional development, my understanding is the students will leave an hour early. The teachers are adding an hour to their week. Given the changes in the pay scale, I would have expected those changes to look about the same, whether or not this change in professional development was done. So I will say the change in professional development really didn't cost us anything. I don't see it having money attached to it, because I think that salary schedule change would have been the same either way. But when we talk about the importance of time in the classroom, in this school district, you have to understand that also means access to books and the other resources. These students don't have books to take home to do work with us. So a great teacher that sets these students up to go off on their own and complete work on a lesson is unable to take a book or other resources home with them, because we don't provide those. As we cut the budget, those are the things that don't get purchased. The labor is still there, but the resources that labor often needs goes away. So just remember that time in the classroom that I want to see more of with better teachers also equates to access to a lot of the resources that we don't have to send home with them. And then as far as using money as a recruitment tool, I don't know why you would pick a recruitment tool that only applies to certain teachers to finance their education in a certain way. If you need to use money as a recruitment tool, use money that applies to every applicant and not just applicants with student loans.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. For those people that are new here, I want to just kind of basically summarize. This is a negotiated contract by the school board and the union. So the only thing we can do here is move it forward or not move it forward. We can't change the terms of that negotiated contract. If you didn't like what you heard or you liked what you heard, you can either vote yes or no. Can't recommend any changes. It's either going to get moved forward for the voters to vote on, or it's going to not be moved forward. Oh, it's going to go forward either way. Okay.
It's going to go forward.
It's going to go forward either way, but you can't change it here. It's up to that to be renegotiated between the school board and the union.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 6, please raise your cards. All opposed? Article 6 passes. Passes to the ballot. Sorry. Article 8, Performance Energy Contracting. Shall the Farmington School District enter into an energy performance contract for the purposes of implementing energy conservation or alternative energy measures under RSA 21I:19D, Energy Performance Contracting? No amount to be raised for a taxation. School Board recommends this article 4-0. Motion to move the question.
So moved.
Motion by Penny Moran. Second.
Second.
Second by Sylvia Arquette. Superintendent Vaughn.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to ask Thomas Seegans to speak to this on behalf of the district.
Mr. Egan is a representative of Siemens.
Yes.
And he will discuss this question.
Point of order. Is non-residents allowed to talk at the deliberative session if that rule hasn't?
Non-residents are allowed to talk if they're supervising or aiding the school, as in the lawyer here for their opinions.
I'm going to make a motion to overrule the moderator. I think this should be the taxpayers or the superintendent presenting the warrant article.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to overrule the moderator and a second.
Is there discussion on this?
Discussion or overruling the moderator?
Mr. Moderator.
Is there any? It's probably non-discussable.
It's probably a non-discussable item.
I don't know.
I have no idea what this is about, but it sounds to me like it's a technical thing, and there's somebody here with expertise who can explain it clearly. Why not use them? And therefore, I would urge people not to overrule a moderator.
Okay. Motion is to overrule the moderator on allowing non-residents to speak to this motion. All in favor of overruling the moderator, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion fails. Mr. Tom Seekins, could you please stand up to the microphone? Mr. Seekins represents Siemens, which is the company that put forth the performance contract that is on this ballot.
Correct.
Okay, thanks for having me. Pretty excited now. I have been managing the K-12 energy business for Siemens for 16 years, and just Maine and New Hampshire. So done a lot of projects with municipalities and schools over those years. And I can say we're not contractually bound to anything at this point. We're merely doing our energy analysis and infrastructure analysis of all the buildings. So really that starts with everything from the 350-watt metal halide lights in this gym to the windows, to the brick and mortar, to the boilers, roof, plenums, you name it. We've been doing an analysis. The competitive RFQ went out on the street back in September. 21I-19D, as Ms. Vaughn has referenced. So we were selected based upon a letter of intent, which does not bind you to anything from a cost perspective or any sort of contract, much like any school system that we've done this with over 1,000 times. I can say, and again, we're not contractually bound to anything at this point, but I've seen a lot of schools in that 16 years, from Presque Isle, Maine to Nashua. This district is very fiscally responsible. You guys is a tight ship. You've done very well with what you've got in place. There's nothing that's under the ASHRAE standard of life cycle of about 20 years for most major pieces of equipment, and everything is at least 20 years old in this district. So that it's all running fully functional and smooth is, I think that speaks volumes to your administration and your board and the work you guys have done. That goes for everything in this room, really. Actually, the air handler that continually runs behind us, that's original. The controls that run it are original, and those are all a 20-year life. So that's the kind of stuff that we've been doing our analysis on. The process of performance-based contracting, I believe actually the town of Farmington, New Hampshire, used this as a means to do street lighting replacements. So it's not a concept that's foreign by any means. This is not something that you're doing that's slight in any way. This is very above board, very unambiguous when it comes to the cost and how we get there. We show you all the numbers. We show you all the competitors' numbers we get, local contractors that we would get as part of this design process. So again, it's very above board, and you have to follow that letter of the law, which is why schools and municipalities inherently like it. I'd say every major town in New Hampshire has used this as their primary means of procurement for capital infrastructure projects. Basically what it is that's the book version of it. We're design building a project with a concept in mind that we hold all the cost for development, again, while you see that cost. I think there's a lot of misnomer of what the cost is going to be for our development. I can tell you, based on, I can give you 100 references where we can show you the cost it took us to do an analysis of a complete school system in regards to that in comparison to a general contracted bid bond. It's about a third the cost. So the actual cost to do the analysis and methodology behind it is very low. Again, another reason why it's a preferred method. All the cost is held until the project is actually financed. the basis of the financing is held upon the energy savings that we can reap by replacing things like, again, these fixtures in this room. So if we went from a 350 watt light to an LED fixture that is less than half of that, and you could probably cut half of these fixtures in the room, that's considerable savings. Then you seal the building, you replace the controls with newer electronic controls. That has X amount of savings to it. That's that chart you see on the left-hand side there. So that's your current utility budget that you spend on an annual basis. We take a 3-year average, so we look at the cost per gallon and the cost per kilowatt, the cost per propane, gallon of propane. If you had natural gas, it'd be thermal natural gas, cubic feet a minute of water, whatever you spend. We use a 3-year average because in New England, the weather changes quite often. So you can't really say last year was a consistent year because it's not. So based on that 3-year average, you have your utility budget. After those improvements that I just kind of spoke upon, you have that drop on the right-hand side. So that's that drop in the gray block. So that payment to the institution, the financing institution, that's held through a tax-exempt lease purchase. This is not a bonded methodology. Another very popular aspect of this is that you're not bonded to a payment. There is a non-appropriation clause that's built into the tax-exempt lease purchase that states essentially that you're a school district and you appropriate your budget annually. I think everyone in here is pretty well tuned to that. So if you were to move students, close a building, whatever happens, you go out of business as a school system, you're not held to a bond payment as you would be otherwise. This has got that non-appropriation clause that says take your toys and we are good. In addition to that is you cannot really institute new things like replacing all your 25-year-old oil-fired boilers with high-efficiency condensing propane boilers, if that were to be chosen, or new windows or whatever, and expect them to operate as efficiently every year if you're not going to maintain them. So that's that service payment. We have to show the cost to actually maintain the equipment after it's implemented. And then excess savings is that, if you, on average, we're about 24% conservative on that. There's no shared savings. Any excess savings that we guarantee, because we guarantee the savings every single year of this project, that excess savings goes right back to the school system. So there is no shared savings in that approach. It basically just allows you to operate your buildings from year to year based on whatever comes up. So if you start having adult education in the building or whatever you want to do, you can use those lights and heat and not feel like you're tied to a payment. We try to get you flexible in that nature. This is another slide that I just recently created for actually Laconia Schools. We just finished their project, something that illustrated something that was a little bit more obvious. So that's, again, similar to that bar chart, just in the form of a pie. Operational and energy costs are similar in nature. They're a common denominator. They're not going to change. You can't really shut the lights off in your classroom, and you really can't stop providing fresh air. We have focused, and again, that was a very important aspect of your administration, is the classroom environment is utmost importance. So it is creating the most optimal learning environment as humanly possible based upon ASHRAE standards for engineering. That is light levels at the desk level. So, foot candles of light at for optimal learning environment per room, library, whatever classroom it is, that's what we're doing analysis based upon. It's 15, 20 CFM of fresh air every 15 minutes per occupant, so on and so forth. So that's the basis of what we're generating this project on. So that is really and truly it. I mean, is there another slide there? I forget how many.
They go into
there's a few there. Okay.
We got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm sure people can't wait for me to stop talking, so I'll try to speed it up. The bond and versus the tax-exempt lease purchase, like I said, there are no change orders in this process, much like the general construction market. We do that as well, but it's not something we love because in inherent nature, you look at a bid spec and you know things are missing, and as a contractor bidding on it, you bid as it's written, not as you think it needs it. So there are inherent change orders on almost every single project in the construction world, big construction world. In this process, there are none. If we have missed something, which we have, in large measure, we pay for it. Again, it's not the lowest bidder, which is lowest bid is something of the past. It's the lowest qualified bid. It's design building with as many local contractors as we can. There's electricians that have been doing work in this district, which they have, roofing contractors, window contractors. We will try to use them as much as humanly possible, all while getting competitive bids through our procurement processes. So. This is just an example of what can be done. So, rather than just taking the energy savings and moving it out of your budget, say you come up with $100,000 in energy savings on a budget of this size, that's not going to be a tremendous impact to anyone, really. What it is a huge impact on is the classroom. You take $100,000 a year and you put it back in your building, spread out over 15 to 17 years, that could literally do about $1.5 million worth of work to your buildings without reflecting a change in your budget for a dime or a penny. Doesn't change. So that's why this process is by far the most prominent and popular methodology behind procuring projects. And that's probably it.
Yep.
Any questions? Or if that's allowed? I don't know. Process.
They'll line up behind you.
They're lining up behind you.
I'm sure.
You might want to stay close to the microphone, Mr. Seekins.
Does the district have an energy audit that's finished?
We do not have the final energy audit from Siemens yet. The final engineering study, I should say.
Okay. And is it true that any cost of this, if we decide to go with a performance contract, the cost of that energy audit is being added on to each project?
The cost would be part of the total project, yes. But right now, it is zero.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. Is this an advisory for the legislative body, or are you asking us for authorization to bind with Siemens?
We are asking for the permission of the session to enter into this contract.
So I guess my question would be, without knowing what the energy audit is, are we really ready to write a blank check and to take our taxpayer rights and just hand it over to the trust to the school board, who may not even be elected yet when this is passed, if it's passed?
Mrs. Ron.
The purpose of this performance contract is to allow us to make energy improvements to the buildings without a major tax impact. Being able to take the savings and make those improvements. This is a process that has been used by the town. It is not unfamiliar to you as voters.
Mr. King.
Charlie King, 10 Rod Road. Is there an estimated cost and an estimated savings for this contract?
The estimated cost will be determined predominantly based on the projects that we choose. Once we get the engineering study back, we will be able to look to see, they may tell us, you need to spend $3 million to get everything up to speed, but you're only going to get this much savings. We're probably not going to do everything all at once. And so part of that is going to be determined on what projects are prioritized and where we go from there.
Yeah, that's correct. I'll just speak to how the pricing is generated. So we break out every single measure a bit by bit. So a pump is priced out, and you see the cost. You also see the savings associated with it. You see the incentives by any, Eversource is really the big one for New Hampshire. So in the latest project we've developed, there was a $300,000 incentive for the Conway Schools lighting project, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into selecting these measures. It is not an all or nothing proposition. You guys actually choose the project that you'd want. It doesn't matter to us if it's $1 or $3 million. Typically, we see these done in a phased out process, is that you try to address the immediate needs now. And there's nothing in this district that is new or hasn't not been beyond its useful life. So there's plenty to do. We fully understand that, and we recognize that not all that will be done in one project. We show you all the numbers and allow you to choose it based on your your current financial means and ability to procure the project. And then whatever's not done, that could last another 5 to 10 years, gets put on the back burner as another phase.
And it is done within the budget.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Henry.
In the presentation, there were a number of school districts listed as either previous or current projects. Did administration or the school board reach out to any of these school districts, and what was the feedback like from those districts?
I've spoken to a number of the superintendents whose projects are represented here. All of them spoke extremely highly of the process, that it enabled them to maintain their budget without going to an additional bond to get the work done that they needed to do. All of them said they would repeat working with this team in a heartbeat, and as you see, some of them have repeat projects there.
Mr. King.
A follow-up question. Is that information regarding the estimated cost and the estimated savings going to be available to the taxpayer when they go to vote on this warrant article that we're looking to forward to town meeting? And if it's not going to be ready, then how would the voter make an informed decision without that information?
Any projects that would be put forward, once we receive that information, will need to be done within the confines of the budget that we have. So the estimate, the energy estimate for our savings would pay for what we would be looking to do. It's not adding additional amount to what we have.
Mr. Krasner.
It's not, Manny Krasner, Reservoir Road. It's not clear to me how the company gets paid. I mean, just theoretically, we know it's not true, but theoretically, if they said, gee, your system is great, you don't need any improvements, you're perfect, would they then walk away with no money? Or I suppose they made a number of recommendations and we said we're not going to do any of them. Do they walk away with no money?
Mr. Seekins, would you like to answer that question?
Good question. We're paid as a general contractor. We're a publicly traded company, so we're a 10 and 12% overhead and profit organization. We show those numbers. Again, you choose the project scope and size. It's our job to show you all of the things that are immediate, the things that are most eminent in terms of repair, also the things that have the greatest amount of energy savings, while considering the forest or the trees nature of school systems. So which buildings have the most current urgent needs, what's down the road, 5 to 10 years from now, all that taken into consideration. But you guys choose that project scope. We do not pigeonhole you into anything. If you decide not to do anything, that's the risk that we've taken upon that letter of intent, which I'll say is the first time in probably a decade that I've negotiated a $0 buyout on our letter of intent. That was done by your administrative team, based upon this meeting, actually, and this presentation, that you would like us to take the risk internally of developing measures at our own nickel. And if it doesn't come to fruition, then we are paid nothing. The cost associated with the energy audit, if you do move forward with the project, you've seen it grow as time goes on. It's not an open checkbook. That's a farce. We show you the cost. If we have to hire someone to do analysis structurally, civilly, electrically, we show you that cost. We don't mark it up. We just pay them, and then we hold the cost. So again, there's nothing arbitrary about this process or ambiguous. You see it all. And it's mostly the risk is on us, to be honest. So hope that answered the questions.
Mr. Brown.
Maybe he'll be able to answer this question. So we're in the process of doing an energy study in 3 of our schools. At some point in time, that's going to generate a cost, spread out over all projects. But how much is that number? Is it 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, 100,000? We don't know.
That is correct. I mean,
the question is, if we enter into this contract, how much have we already spent in our energy analysis on all the work that's being done now?
we're spending 0.
He said 0 if we don't enter into a contract.
No. It's Mr. Seekins. Mr. Seekins, please clarify.
Well, just to be clear, this is the most risk-averse process known to man when it comes to school districts. The risk is 100% on us. And the bank, to be quite frankly. I mean, moving forward, you've paid us. You're not tied to us after the project or any other energy services company that's in the state, which there are a plethora of. We're one of many. We were selected here based on our qualifications and references, but in K-12 business. The only other way to do projects is to bond a project, and you raise your budget to get a couple $1 million to make improvements to your buildings, which, by the way, are inevitable. Everything in this district is 25 years old. So if you're not going to do it this way, whether it's with us or any other ESCO, there's only one other way to do it, and that is to just raise your budget and use your capital funds to make the improvements. That's done through a general obligation bond. So I don't know, I mean, what else to say about it? Well, we show all the costs associated with anything that's a part of this project, and the district doesn't have to spend any money for about 2 years, because as part of this process, the bank allows you to have an entire year to start garnering energy savings to make your payments before you start making any payments to the bank. So once again, if you use money within the current operational budget to put towards it, you're not really having to worry about that for almost a year and a half, 2 years. So.
Ms. Mulcahy.
As a school board member, I've actually seen this presentation by this company a couple of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression that I've had throughout it all is our current budget for the boilers, for the electricity, and everything is based on equipment that is 20-plus years old. Essentially, what they would like to do is step in and start making efficiency improvements. That being said, that money that is budgeted will essentially go down in cost. However, they'd like to take that cost and then reinvest it and improve other parts of the district. Not inflating the budget at all, working within those budget lines, just using that money more effectively while improving the equipment that we have.
Mr. Henry.
To Mr. Brown's question about the cost of the energy audit, if it's rolled into the projects, am I correct in believing that even accounting for the cost of the energy audit in any particular project, there's still a savings after paying for whatever the cost may be of the energy audit?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Brown.
I guess I'll ask again. There's been a lot of work. We've had a lot of engineers for our schools, a lot of studies going on. There has to be a cost associated with that if we give the school board permission to enter into a contract. Is that number $1? Is it $10,000? Is it $100,000? Nobody knows. Yet you want us to sign a blank check.
I think that's
Manny. Ms. Seaver, please.
What I heard was non-appropriation clause, which says to me, and I may be wrong, so correct me if I am, if a project is coming next year, the year after, through this whole system, where they will get their money when the project comes, it's going to be put before the voters with an appropriation. And if we don't appropriate it, we don't do it. That was my understanding. Now, maybe I misunderstood what he meant by non-appropriation clause.
May I follow up on that?
And that, okay.
Yes, please. Manny.
Which I think the big thing we need to understand is that by signing the contract, and as I understand from the earlier answer, by signing the contract, we are not jumping off a cliff. What Mr. Deegan seems to say, and I'll ask him to reiterate, is that until and unless we say we're going to do a project, we don't pay him any money. Is that correct? Simple yes or no will do.
Yes. If it helps with, on average, our auditing is around $75,000. I mean, I think on average. But again, comparing to hiring someone to do just a full-fledged audit with no implementation, it's probably a third the cost. You could do all the research you want on that.
And not
Mrs. Vaughn.
to the point that Mrs. Seaver made, the amount that would be under non-appropriation would be anything that would be in excess of our general operating budget. Our operating budget is our operating budget. We're looking to take the energy costs that we have now and spend those monies differently.
I got a couple things. Bruce Bridges, 10 Rod Road. First thing is who has this contract and who's looked it over? Who's read the contract?
Ms. Vaughn?
We have the letter of intent. We have the letter from Siemens that has said there is no cost at this point. Presentations have been done. We do not have the full performance contract in hand because the projects have not been chosen. There is not that piece that has been done yet.
Okay, now the second thing. The second thing I got is
Please speak into the microphone.
Oh, the second thing I got is I was wondering that if I'm correct in thinking that means that you're going to spend every nickel every year of your budget, so there will never be any money coming back to the taxpayer from the school at all.
Mrs. Vaughn?
For us to spend every nickel is probably, because we don't have the option of keeping things over, that's probably not a good idea to start with. But no, the intent is not to change the spending. The intent is to take what we have in our energy pieces now and to shift the way that that's spent.
Here's my big concern. First of all, I'm hearing the number of approximately 75,000. I won't hold them to that number. But I also read the RFQ. And Manny's an attorney, and I'm listening to him to say, is there a cost or not? But contract is contract. And the RFQ says, if we go through this energy study, and we decide to enter into a performance contract, which we're authorizing you guys to do, those fees are due and payable. And that scares me. And I have one follow-up statement in that, for the first time, I'm hearing a number of approximately $75,000. I saw the letter of intent, which is signed by the superintendent of schools. I have not seen one vote by the school board to enter into or to authorize that and bind over $5,000, which is required by a policy, or waive it and authorize the superintendent. So with that type of procedure, again, you're asking us to sign a blank check and trust a board that hasn't even been elected yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Seekins, one moment, please.
That was precisely why your administration negotiated that as a $0 letter of intent, because she could not authorize expenditures that were not put before her team yet. So that's why I said that's one of the first times we've done that in quite some time. That $0 buyout is in that letter of intent. You're going to pay us for the measures selected once you've chosen those measures. We have not completed the audit. We've only been doing it for the last couple of months. There's a lot of work to be done. But that is paid for by which you select for the project, and only that. And once again, you're not tied to us. The non-appropriation clause is the bank thing, not a Siemens thing. So that's the tax-exempt lease purchase mechanism. Your bond attorney, I'm sure, can speak eloquently to that, but that's the difference in really the bonding and the tax-exempt lease purchase. It has nothing to do with us.
And the amount is paid from the savings. It's not paid
Correct.
as a separate upfront cost. It is rolled into what is paid out over the 20 years. We don't write a check for $75,000, bang, right up front. Correct?
Exactly. You're not paying anything up front. You're paying, once the audit, the process is, once the energy audit and analysis is done, we've met several times, we've achieved the project that makes the most sense, both operationally, the classroom environment, and fiscal responsibility for the district. You then select that project, we put it out to competitive bid for banks to bid on it, and the banks give you an entire year to implement said projects with no payment. So once again, you're not obligated to do anything for the year after the project's been developed, which is about 6 months. I used an approximate cost for engineering because I kept being asked for it, so I gave you an approximate cost. If you ask us to build a rocket ship on the roof of a school, that money will change. If you just say, hey, stick to the basics, then that will be a basic audit. I can't tell you what it's going to cost until I know what you really want us to design. So we don't go and do a full audit like a lot of companies do and then just give you a price. We will engineer it to a certain percentage, present you the items and the options, and say, do you like these ideas in terms of concept? If you do, then we finish that engineering, and there's that cost. But it's really only spending the minimal amount of money as humanly possible not to do analysis on things that will never happen. So once again, we're doing analysis on square footage of things that probably make sense, not everything.
Mrs. Moran.
Mr. Moderator, I believe Sam had her
I've been raising my
up.
hand for like 20 minutes over here.
I'll yield to Mrs. Place.
Samantha Place.
Thank you. I think we're beating a dead horse. We vote as a community to give them an operating budget. They are legally not allowed to spend more than the operating budget. So why are we sitting here arguing about money that they could potentially illegally spend? It's ridiculous. We're wasting everybody's time. We give them the ability to go into this contract. They can't spend any money without our permission. So why are we wasting our time arguing? Approve the damn thing and let's move on.
Mrs. Moran.
Oh, well, I kind of like what Sam said, that we should just move on, but I just want to say, either way, we have to maintain our buildings. This is just another way for us to be able to maintain our buildings, because if we don't, and we don't have these savings, and we can't reallocate these funds to take care of costs that we would have to bond, then we're going to be right back here asking you for an additional amount of money in order to put in new lights or in order to reseal the outside of the building. So we still have to maintain these buildings, and this is just another opportunity or option for us to do those things.
Alan Arbo, Morning Dove Lane. With respect to Mr. Brown and all of my beloved fiscal watchdogs, this is a school decision. Their house needs to be fixed, so to speak. They're not people looking to do bad things here. This is a relatively controlled environment. It's not going to spiral out of control. We as the voters have a vote on where things are going to go. This is, with respect to what Mrs. Place said, this is a moot discussion. Pass it. Be done with it. Give them an opportunity. As a matter of fact, say to the school, look, we trust you. We know you're going to do the right thing, and let them do it.
Katrina Motion on Skyview Drive. Call the question.
I'll call the question just as soon as these two people in line have a turn to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Paula Prue, Elm Street. Mrs. Vaughn is right that the town side did do this type of a project, but at the time what we did was we took individual projects and we looked at each individual one. What we did was we had monies that we had it all outlined in front of us. When we did the project, they did the estimate. We knew what the estimate savings were going to be. We knew what the cost was going to be. So we made an informed decision on going forward. If you don't have those numbers in front of you, there is a lot of guesswork to this. So they don't know if they have enough right now in the budget on the line for the facilities to go forward with it if their estimates are actually higher than what they've actually put in their line budget for cost. When we looked at it on the town side, we knew what the estimated savings were going to be, what the cost was going to be, so we knew what we were putting forward. I think that's the only difference here. If you guys were able to do it by project so that people had that information in front of them, I don't think you would get this much confusion.
And it will be decided by project, and no project can move forward that doesn't fit within the confines of the budget that we have.
And that's my question. And that's my question. Who gets to choose the projects? Will it come back to the taxpayers, or will we just say, we're going to authorize you to sign the contract, good luck? Who gets to pick the projects? Will
I
it
think
come?
it'll come before the school board for each and every project that comes forward. So it will be discussed in an open forum.
With public input.
With public input.
Okay, great, thank you.
And, I'm sorry, if I could just add to that as well, aren't we tying it in?
We get a motion to call the question. All in favor to call the question, raise your cards. All opposed? Motion to call the question carries. Now we'll vote on the article. Shall the Farmington School District enter in the energy performance contract for the purpose of implementing energy conservation or alternative measures under RSA 21I:19D, energy performance contracting? All in favor of moving Article 8 to the ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. The moderator would like to take about a 10-minute recess. I just had my knee replaced a couple weeks ago, and I really need to stretch it out.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor for a 10-minute recess? All opposed? Thank you.
You have to get opposition when you say it's because I need a break.
Just a reminder, there is no smoking on school property.
You know how much I wanted to get these
I think this is something we could not do. Right, Kathy, this is something we could have chosen not to talk about. No, I'm saying, but if you voted no.
Oh, no, everything. It carries, so it has to be. You're making a change, though. Can't change what? Can't change the intent. Every single unless they're oh, absolutely. That was like somebody.
based on current staff. Well, it's always that. It's always that. Oh, yeah, current, using two different bodies. Yeah. That was. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the time that I knew. When I read current, I wasn't intending to, because I watched 5 years ago, it was missed. Oh, Jesus, I don't remember that. That got through DI. So, yeah. Right, I know what you're saying. But it's because this is not comparing real monies to real money. This is comparing real money to real money, and it's still an estimate based on current staff. This is not the difference over monies. I don't agree. Yeah. Well, it may it's not bad. Wow.
I just got another second cup of coffee.
Yeah, well, that's
That's what's keeping me going right now.
That's the, it's a new thing where it will park itself.
Yeah.
Well, I was on the computer yesterday. The day before yesterday, and looking up the school. And that came on every time I pushed in a new one. It's like, so just get that box. Gordon says, you know, the one on 795 is down, Debbie down. Did you copy Worcester? Yeah, Worcester. It's just so funny the way there's the accent. It's a full Boston accent with everyone. None of it's from Boston. Well, that makes it fun. When you first went into it, I like to call to quarters. Call to quarters with the like that. It's still when you spoke that. Oh! Call to quarters. I want to say. You said you never got down. I bet.
By her donating them up there, I was able to give money to steam. So steam makers. Well, what are we on now? The roof.
Then we got our little meeting. No. Well, that's what he just did. He said Mike's going to announce it like after school leaving or whatever. They'll just
But we got to look at what we got on here and how long it's going to take them to argue up there. Want a strawberry or Oreo?
Okay, if we can call the meeting back to order.
Well, thank you. My husband, they look pretty big. I don't need to buy those. They're pretty good. Well, they were like irregular too, right? So.
I noticed because I bumped into a Walmart and she was buying it.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. If I'm not mistaken, we're on Article 9. Henry Wilson Memorial School roof. See if Farmington School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $157,000 for the purpose of repairing and replacing roof sections at Henry Wilson Memorial School, and to authorize the withdrawal of $38,000 from the Capital Improvements and Renovations Capital Reserve Fund, and the withdrawal of $119,000 from the Farmington School District Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund, which were created for these purposes. No amount to come from general taxation. I have a motion to move the question.
So moved.
So moved by Sylvia Arquette. Second. Second by Neil Johnson. Discussions on Article 9. Seeing no discussion allowed on Article 9, I'll call for, hold on. Thank you, sir.
Rob Lallis, Labrador Road. Where'd the number come from, the 157?
157 is the number that they would like to raise and appropriate, and if I add 119,000 and 38,000, that comes up to $157,000.
Yeah, is that a sub bid?
This is
a roofer?
This is not a bid for the roofer. This is the budget to allow them to hire a contractor to see if they can do the roof for that amount.
We have had quotes that have given us as a parameter for what we're looking to do.
And the budget committee come up with the numbers, or school board? Who came up with the 157, I guess, is my question.
We have had quotes done on the work that would need to be done on those roofs, and this is the amount for those roofs.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mary Barron Ridge Road, pardon my cookie. Is this, the 157,000, is that the amount that we had originally discussed for the Henry Wilson Memorial School? That just doesn't seem like an awful lot of money to get money done. Is there more money available?
It's what's available in those two CRFs, and it would do those roof sections that we have on for 2021 in our capital improvements plan. I know this is very small. It is available online. It's also available over on the display over there to the side.
But that wasn't the original dollar amount, was it?
Originally, we had looked to do more. We did correct the amounts in the CRFs because of an encumbrance that hadn't been shown originally. That has been corrected.
Okay. All right, thank you. I knew it was something, I just couldn't remember what.
Okay.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 9 to the ballot as worded, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Article 10, Farmington High School roof. See, the Farmington School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $437,000 for the purpose of repairing and replacing the remaining roof section at Farmington High School, and authorize the withdrawal of $437,000 from the Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund created for that purpose. No amount to be raised by taxation. So moved by Joe Petrie.
Second.
Second by Penny Moran. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 10 to the ballot as worded, raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Article 11, Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. See if the school district will vote and raise and appropriate the sum of up to $50,000 to be added to the Special Education Expendable Trust previously established. This sum to come from June 30, 2020 fund balance available for transfer on July 1, 2020. No amount to be raised by taxation. School board recommends. Budget committee recommends. Motion to move the article.
So moved.
So moved by Sylvia Arquette, second by Neil Johnson. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 11 to the ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 12, Farmington School District Bus Capital Reserve Fund. See if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added to the Farmington School District Bus Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum must come from June 30th, 2020 fund balance, available for transfer on July 1, 2020. No amount to be raised by taxation. School Board and Budget Committee recommend. Do I have a motion to move the question? So moved by Mr. Brown. Second. Second, Steve Henry. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 12 to the ballot? All opposed? Motion carries. Article 13, see if the school district will vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to be added to the kitchen equipment capital reserve fund previously established. This sum to come from June 30, 2020 fund balance, available for transfer in July 1. School Board and Budget Committee recommend. Motion to move the question.
So moved.
So moved by Sylvia Arquette. Second by Ann Titus. Discussion. Mr. Henry.
In the event some of our kitchen equipment is identified as a place to save energy, and the energy savings could fund replacement with the performance contract, how does this play into that? If they come back and say you've got old compressors that are running inefficiently on this walk-in cooler or something similar to that?
We've already replaced the cooler, or it's in process through a grant. These and the freezer, these could be used to augment that. So it means that we could potentially do more than, or it could be part of. I'm thinking probably as we look at the overall energy audit, this is not our lowest hanging fruit, although we do have some pieces that are coming up that are going to need to be replaced.
So if I understood correctly, there's just probably not a lot of opportunity that there's something there that would have energy savings that would overlap with the performance contract?
It may not. In the event that it does, these monies could be used to pay for that project in the performance contract as well, to allow us to do additional pieces from the general budget.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 13 to the ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Article 14, Farmington School District Safety and Security Capital Reserve Fund. See if the school district will vote to establish a Farmington School District Safety and Security Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of providing for safety and security measures for the district, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed into this fund, come from the June 30th, 2020 fund balance available for transfer on July 1. Further, to name the school board as agents to expend from said fund. No amount to be raised for taxation. School board recommends. Budget committee does not. I have a question, motion to move the question to the floor.
So moved.
So moved by Penny Moran. Second.
Second.
Second by Stan Frieda. Discussion. Mr. Brown.
Tim Brown from Melody Lane. I just have a question on the fund balance. I attended the emergency meeting that was held to correct this warrant article. This is one of the warrant articles that was originally funded out of the $950,000. The emergency meeting was called and it was amended funding out of fund balance. The comment was made is at that meeting that it doesn't really matter, we're not going to have a fund balance anyway. Is there a problem with the fund balance this year? Because I'm seeing that comment, and then I'm seeing bonuses in the operating budget that probably should have come out of this year's budget and fund balance that are being put off into next year's budget. So is there any problems with the fund balance? Are we going to be able to fund this?
There are no current issues with the fund balance. There's not a guarantee, because the warrant articles that are funded out of unexpended fund balance are funded in the order in which they appear on the ballot. So the ones that you have there, Article 11 would be funded first, then Article 12, then Article 13, then Article 14. So to say that it won't be there, I don't think we can say that yet. To say that it definitely will be there, I can't say that yet either. I still have several months of budget. The unexpected happens that influences the unexpended.
Okay, and am I correct? I can't remember. We can't change the funding source, correct? If we wanted to fund this out of
That is correct.
taxation, we can't change
This
it?
is also
Okay.
to establish said fund. This fund has not been established yet.
Okay, thank you.
Blanche Tanner, Memorial Drive. I just have a question, and then I'd like to maybe make a comment. To the Budget Committee, I was at the meeting. I don't recall, if somebody could tell me, why did the majority of the Budget Committee not recommend this? I don't recall.
Mr. Henry.
I can tell you why I voted against it, and it was less to do with the subject matter of the article and the fact that I believe it's two subjects in one. It's asking you to establish the capital reserve fund while simultaneously asking you to name the school board as the agents to expend. I believe those should be two separate questions. You should be able to establish the fund while maintaining your right as voters to expend from the fund.
Thank you. Would anybody else on the committee want to address that?
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, my thought on the warrant article was written is the word safety is very broad. There have been occasions over the past few years where improvements and changes were made to the school under the guise or under the term safety, such as replacing lockers in the gym, that things like that could be technically covered by this warrant article. So I would like to see the warrant article wording tightened up so that it's for security only and remove the word safety.
Thank you. May I make one quick comment?
Yes.
Okay, I just would like to make a comment regarding the line that says to name the school board as agents to expend. Okay, every time this comes up, whether it's here or in the town, I have the same feeling. It doesn't matter how we have voted individually, but as a town, we have voted for these people to be on the school board at this moment. The town, the select board, at this moment, they're on that board. My feeling is if the town, the majority of the town feels comfortable with these people sitting in those positions, I don't have a history in this town other than 16 years. In the 16 years I've been here, I have not heard of anybody absconding with money. So I guess when this question comes up about whether the school board or the selectmen, for that matter, should be agents to expend, I don't know why there's a big discussion about that. Maybe not here, but maybe somebody later could explain that to me. It's probably not a discussion for this moment because I know everybody wants to go home and have lunch. But the fact is, I don't know why that's a big deal. And so my feeling, whether it's the school board or the town, the selectmen, I guess I don't have an issue with it. With them, those two things being together, I don't have an issue with it, whether the school board is discussing it here or the town is going to be discussing it when they have their presentation Wednesday. So thank you, that's all.
Mr. Henry.
2 points. First of all, we don't have to go home to have lunch. There's some delicious lunch out back. Number 2 question, are we able to amend this article here to remove the word safety?
One moment, please.
You can rename the CRF if you want.
And advice by legal, yes, the name of the fund could be amended at this meeting. Mr. King.
Just a question on the placement. If this is going to be paid for out of unexpended fund balance, and this is the last one on the ballot, so is this the priority that the school board wants and the superintendent wants? Because at this point, if we run out of money, it's going to go to the kitchen equipment before security. Is that where you feel the placement should be? Because, or should it be moved up the list in order to ensure that if the funding there's a shortfall, that this gets funded? So it's just a question, because is this where you want it?
This was a deliberate placement, not that we're not putting safety and security high on the list, but we do have some kitchen equipment that is perhaps more eminently an issue, and there are some other grant funding that is possible down the road for additional infrastructure and security pieces. We are looking to get this so that we can have it moving forward because we are going to continue to need to upgrade security. So this is to get that started.
Mr. Henry.
I'll make a motion that we strike the word safety and from the name of the fund and in the description where it describes the purpose is providing for safety and security measures.
Second motion made by Stephen Henry, seconded by Neil Johnson, to strike the word safety and. So it would read, provisions for RSA 35-1 for the purpose of providing for security measures for the district. And everything else would be as worded.
Yeah, so my motion would apply to the title as well as.
For the title as well, so Farmington School District Security Capital Reserve Fund. So the motion is to strike the word safety and the word and from the title and the verbiage that's listed underneath. Discussions. One moment, please. Mrs. Vaughn.
No.
Hearing no further discussions, I'll call for a vote on the motion to strike the word safety and the word and from the title and the verbiage of Article 14. All in favor of striking those two words, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. The article now reads, Farmington School District Security Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the school district will vote to establish a Farmington School District Security Capital Reserve Fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of providing for security measures for this district and to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in this fund to come from the June 30, 2020 fund balance available for transfer of July 1. Further, to name the school board as agents to expend from said fund. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 14 as amended to the ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, just so you know, we have the Steam Makers, which is our robotics team that so graciously provided food and beverages for us here. I'd like to give them a round of applause. And also, Megan Henry's over here at the table raising money for a basketball game between the Harlem Wizards and the school district employees, teachers, or whatever. That's to raise money for the STEAM project for a STEM lab.
STEAM
Please.
Lab at Henry Wilson.
STEAM Lab at Henry Wilson.
And thank you to the Honor Society for providing childcare.
And thank you for the Honor Society for providing childcare.
On behalf of myself and probably every person, taxpayer, parent, whatever, not knowing what's going to happen in March, I would like to put my personal thanks out to those of you who are up for re-election, who may or may not make it. Let's, you know, that's a whole different issue, but should changes be made to the board, I'd like to personally thank those that have served, one in particular, 12 plus years, if for some reason they don't, because we're not going to have this opportunity to thank them for all the hours and hours and hours that they've put in up until that March point, whatever that outcome may be. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved.
Second.
Non-debatable, we're adjourned.
It's not debatable, but it's got to be a vote.
Take a vote. All in favor of? All opposed?